Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you all would rise, I call this meeting to order. I will lead us out in prayer, and then Donna Doss will lead our pledge. Father, we are so thankful, God, that you give us this incredible place to live and to serve. Father, we are just praying for this meeting, that you give us wisdom and guidance as we seek to do what's best for Lincoln Parish and its schools and the education and the children, God, that come to school. And for those teachers and administrators and leaders of this school, we just pray for this year as we prepare for a great school year. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
you should all have had the chance to review the agenda. Mr. Anders.
I move that we, hearing nothing from the public, I move that we approve the agenda as printed.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Mitchum. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no.
No.
Thank you. All right, so the minutes, hopefully you had a chance to review the minutes of our regular session of July 2nd, last month.
Move that we adopt the minutes as printed.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchum. Do I have a second? Second by Miss Linda Henderson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Thank you. We'll consider that matter passed. Okay, so any unfinished business for this board? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. We have several items to pick up. So with that, Mr. Schluter, who's going to run that one? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Sorry.
Okay, so we've had a busy month in July. We did conduct the sales of 2 bond series for the Shudrint School District number 6. The sale of $2 million in bonds was conducted on the 25th of July. And for the Ruston School District 1, the sale of $17.5 million in bonds was conducted on July the 23rd. Those were completed. You have the resolution in your packet, basically to confirm the bond purchase agreement and all the other matters related to the sale that was actually completed, to confirm the sales that occurred. We do have members of our financing team who were involved in the sale and did a wonderful job for the school board. I'd like to introduce those and ask them to come up and say a few words about how the transactions occurred for both the Shudrint and the Ruston school districts. We have Grant Schluter with Foley and Judell as our bond counsel. We have Whitney Laird with Stiefel, who is the underwriter of the bonds, who actually conducted the sale of all of the bonds out in the market. And we have Lucius McGee with Argent, who is our municipal advisor and paying agent, who will be the paying agent for the bonds as well. So, Grant?
Thank you very much. Grant Schluter with Foley Udell Bond Counsel. As Ms. Duke indicated, this board had previously authorized the sale of the respective bonds for the Ruston and Shudrint school districts after passage by the voters. Authorized the set the parameters for the sale within that resolution, giving that authority to the superintendent to, after pricing of the bonds, to accept the proposal. If it met those parameters, the bonds were priced successfully with very, very good sale results. You are maintaining your bond rating with Standard & Poor's, and there's going to be some discussion of that also. But very successful pricing. The resolutions today will be to confirm the action of the superintendent in accepting those proposals pursuant to your prior authorization. I believe Lucius, as a municipal advisor or financial advisor, is going to discuss your bond rating and the very good news, and that accounts in large part for the very low interest rate that you're getting on your bond sales.
Thank y'all. Lucius McGee, Argent Advisors. When the administration and the financing team got together and we were looking at the capital improvement plan, the things that you guys wanted to build, and how are we going to finance that, we set about looking at that and how to finance that in the best way possible. As Mr. Schluter said, your previous rating was by Standard & Poor's was a AA-, which is one of the highest in the state by Standard & Poor's. That's kind of like your credit score, if you would think about it, when you go get a loan. The reason that you have such a good credit rating, it goes from AAA to AA plus, AA minus, and on all the way down to BBB minus, C and D, and those people never pay their bonds off. So what we're dealing with are the AA minus, which is about as high as you're going to see in the state. So what that is the financial condition of the school board. That comes from the enrollment, that also comes from the sales tax base, and it also the reserves that the school district has and how they're managing those. So Louisiana, as we all know, ranks kind of low from the nation is concerned, and so we're already starting from a place of weakness from a national perspective. So we have to do extra things at the local level to make up for that. And that's what happens with the financial management that the administration and you as a school board do with the money. How y'all vote on different things, how you do your sales taxes, how you do your ad valorem taxes. That all relates to your credit score, which relates to what interest rate you're going to have to pay. So the lower the rating, the higher interest you're going to have to pay. And we can say congratulations to what you guys are doing to have a AA minus credit rating on this bond issue, and it was affirmed for all your other bond issues to remain at a AA minus right now with what you guys have done, and I have confidence that you will continue to do with how you manage your finances. So that's real good. That helps us out a lot. That certainly helps out Whitney when she is selling the bonds. When you have a good credit rating and you can command a lower interest rate. So that's all well and good. So how does all this work? So we take what we came up with 16.75 mils on the Ruston School District because we figured how much money would be generated by those millages, and also the bond reserve account that already exists for those for that school district. And so what we're doing is we said, okay, 16.75 mils plus a little bit of the reserves that we have, we can borrow $17.5 million. And that's what we did. And we borrowed this 17.5 for 5 years. Now you have other bonds that are longer dated than that, but the one that we just did is for 5 years, and we are assessing 16.75 mils to pay not only that bond debt service, but also the other bonds that the school district one has. And we're all, that 16.75 mils does not generate enough money to pay all of that debt service. But you have a reserve in here because of the strong financial management that you have that can only be spent on debt service. This is not like taking money out of teacher salaries or anything like that to pay on debt service. This is specifically for that tax. So we're utilizing some of that. We're spending down that reserve along with the millage income that we're getting to pay these bonds off. So we thought that that was a prudent way to do that, and Standard & Poor's agreed with that. We structured the debt to be able to do that, and Whitney will talk a little bit about what the good news was on that. Before we get to Whitney, does anybody have any questions about that? Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Okay, I'll turn it over to Whitney.
If you can
Yes.
recap the Shudrint issue too.
I'm sorry?
Recap the Shudrint issue too.
Yes. Same thing about the Shudrint issue. We're doing exactly the same thing with it. That is a $2 million issue, and that one was for 20 years. Okay? And so when we did that one, and Whitney will talk a little bit about that, we had great local interest in that one. And we were able to do that. The great thing about it is how we structure this, especially with how Whitney and Steve will go about doing their job. We were able to get a little bit more money than the $2 million or the $17 million because of the efforts of of Whitney as well as the structure of the bonds that we did. So since we don't really know how much these things are going to cost yet, everybody knows that inflation is hitting, and we don't, steel changes every day. So we're given a little cushion to be able to do some of this. I'm going to turn it over to Whitney. She can talk good news.
Good evening, everybody. Whitney Laird with Stiefel. Like they said, I served as the underwriter on both transactions. On the 23rd of July, we entered the market with School District 1. So that was $17.5 million for 5 years. Your true interest cost was a $331. And so with that, when we went into the market, investors were offering a premium. The premium on this was about $855,000. So I was able to put into the construction fund a little over or right under $18.1 million. Great interest on this. Like Lucia said, your rating helps tremendously because some investors are restricted to what type of bonds they can buy, and an investment grade rating, AA category, is definitely one of them. So great results on that. I think, Juanita, from that Monday afternoon, I think we were able to get about 12 basis points better in the market on that Tuesday when it came to final results. Also, this transaction was structured as level debt service on a calendar year basis. Switching over to school district number 6, it was for $2 million and went for 20 years. Your true interest cost was a $406. And your premium on this was right below $200,000. So kind of the difference is, you had $17.5 million on the other one, only $2 million on this one. So kind of the difference in the premium, and it went out 15 years longer. This debt was structured around existing obligations of that school district. So it's not completely level, but it's nothing crazy. It just kind of wraps around those existing obligations. So with that, I'll take any questions you have. And again, great job, and we appreciate Juanita and the superintendent, helping out on those rating calls. And also, we appreciate Argent and Lucius and the team. Lucius was helpful on school district number 6, wrapping up the final order period. So we appreciate that.
So these are the two resolutions to confirm we will have the bond proceeds available in your bank account on August 15th. And just, if I can, we'll be happy to answer any questions, but if I could, just referencing back to your Standard & Poor's bond rating, it is absolutely critical. Not many school boards are in the AA category. No one's in the AAA, but very few are in the AA category. It results in the lower interest rate, lowest possible burden to the property taxpayers of each of these districts. I'd encourage you to read the report from Standard & Poor's. Some of the language they use: very strong reserves, low debt burden to the property taxpayers, and solid financial performance. So something to be very, very proud of.
Any questions from the board? If not, we do need to adopt a resolution recognizing the final form and the execution of the bond purchase agreement in connection with the issuance and sale of general obligation school bonds series 2024 of the Ruston School District number 1 of Lincoln Parish in the state of Louisiana. So do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution?
So move.
So moved by Mr. Hunter Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. George Mack Jr. Are there any questions from the board or any comments from the public on this? This is a voting matter. Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Hearing none, that matter passes. Now, we would also like to adopt the same resolution recognizing the final form and execution of the bond purchase agreement in connection with the issuance and sale of general obligation school bonds, Series 2024 of the Shudrint School District, number 6, of Lincoln Parish in Louisiana. Do I have a motion to pass that resolution?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. George Mack Jr. Do I have a second? Second by Clark Canterbury. Thank you for that. Mr. Hancock is unavailable to make such a motion, so we respect that. Any comments from the audience? Any questions from the board? All in favor say aye.
Roll call. Roll call. We don't need that? No. Okay.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. All right, we will move on. Item number 6.3, Ms. Duke, adopt millages for the 2024 tax roll.
Okay, so you have before you the resolution that's presented for adoption to levy the property tax millages of the school board on the 2024 tax roll. We've summarized in the assessor. This is, of course, everyone knows this is the year of the quadrennial reassessment that's conducted, and the assessor has provided the adjusted millage rates on the reassessed values of property across the parish, and as a result, we have several millages where those rates, adjusted rates, were lowered due to increases in the values of property across the parish. In all districts, for all millages, that decreased. We had some decreases, except for in the Simsboro School District, number 3. That millage rate, we are proposing that to increase by 0.34 mils from 2.99 mils. That's the Simsboro Maintenance and Operating millage, to 3.33 mils. And what that increase is for, that's the adjusted rate that the assessor valued. Because the property values in Simsboro dropped, he had to adjust the rates upward so that we could receive the same level of revenue as we did in the previous year. So that was adjusted upward. Now we did review and look at the reason for that decrease in property, and the valuation methods for oil and gas wells across the parish changed. Simsboro was hit, that district was hit especially hard, with approximately about an 86% decrease in the valuations for oil and gas wells because of the change in the valuation method. And that is predominantly the reason for the drop in the values. Property values did go up, residential values did go up, but unfortunately not enough to offset the decrease overall in that district. The other millage that we are recommending the board levy is for school district number 1, maintenance and operating. This is the first levy of the for the renewal of this millage that was approved by voters on March the 26th of 2022. It's a 10-year property tax for maintenance and operating, and it was passed at that point, and we have to levy it at the rate that the voters approved it at, and that's an increase from 2.33 mils to 2.53 mils. So a 0.2 basis point change in that rate. And then we have our bond millages. The assessor does not adjust the rates for our bonds. For the bonds, as approved by the voters, we levy the millage rates that are required to pay, to adequately pay the next year's debt service, not to exceed a reserve of a balance of in excess of 1 year of principal and interest payments as well. And after discussion of that with bond counsel and municipal advisors, we are recommending that those millage rates remain the same for the 2024 tax roll levy. So you have the resolution before you, and we recommend that for adoption.
Thank you. Okay, so hearing the resolution or seeing the resolution, any questions from the board on how that works, how that looks? If you need more clarity on that, we'll be glad to get into that. But essentially, what we're trying to do is, for most people in our parish, they saw an increase in the property values, and now they're very concerned about paying more property taxes. And so what we're doing as a school board is we're saying we're gonna keep the amount of money that you paid in property taxes last year the same as this year for as many people as possible. So that we'll adjust them down so that they'll, at the end of the day, they'll pay the same amount of money in property taxes for the Lincoln Parish School Board. For the ones that you see at the top of the resolution, those are gonna remain the same. The only one that's going up is Simsboro, and that's simply because the property tax value drops because of the oil and gas money. So to remain neutral, Simsboro property owners will have to pay a little bit more. But we are not rolling any of these values forward, okay? And what we're doing as far as the millages for this year, because this is the first year post the election, we are keeping the bond at 16.75 mils for this year, and we'll reevaluate that in the future. So every year we'll be looking at that. Simsboro is going to remain at 11.5, and Shudrint's going to remain at 14. And that is going to remain the same for this year. But regarding the other property taxes, they will roll back to be the same amount of money collected as previous years. So that should give a big sigh of relief to most of the property owners in Lincoln Parish. Any questions about that? We think that's good news for the public.
If no comments or questions from the public or board members, I move to adopt the resolution levying millage rates for the 2024 tax roll.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Second by several members. We'll just say Debbie Abram. We'll say you snuck in there first. Any comments from the audience? Okay, so this will require a roll call vote. Mr. Andrews, you are
Okay.
correct on that.
All right, thank you.
Linda Henderson. Yes. Hunter Smith.
Yes.
Otha Anders.
Yes.
George Mack.
Yes.
Debbie Abram.
Yes.
Danny Hancock is absent. Donna Doss.
Yes.
Danielle Williams.
Yes.
David Ferguson.
Yes.
Clark Canterbury.
Yes.
Greg Phillips.
Yes.
Joe Mitchell.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll consider that matter passed. Okay. Mr. Heffler, I believe we need you to come up here and talk about surplus buses.
Yes, sir. Good evening. After this school year, we had 2 buses that are no longer in use to us. We had some engine issues after getting them checked out. So it's going to be at greater cost for these 2 buses to be fixed. So we are requesting the board to declare these buses surplus and grant permission to dispose of them.
Okay, so there's a request before the board to dispose of 2 buses that were deemed unfit for repair and continuation of service. Do I have any questions about that? Any comments from the public? Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, how do you dispose of buses when
So we take them to MIMS and recycle,
okay,
to the recycling.
okay.
Any comments from the public? All right. Did I get a motion for that yet? I don't remember. Okay, can I get a motion? Thank you, Mr. Mitchum, for that. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Donna Doss. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Thank you. Mr. Heffler.
Yes, sir. Also, to provide safe and efficient transportation for our Lincoln Parish students, we are requesting to buy some buses. With the demand of our extracurricular activities with everybody in our district and also field trips, we like to buy buses on a yearly basis, trying to meet those needs and also helping out with our route buses, putting better buses on line. We also would need a special needs bus that we need to have in our fleet. And so as our fleet ages, we need to replace our buses. And also as we're replacing older buses, as we're buying newer buses, we're trying to put air conditioning on our buses for our students. So we're going to try to buy a special needs bus, cost about $147,000, and also some activity buses. The approximate cost $167,000, excuse me, using the Ruston 1 district bond and also the 1993 ad valorem. So our recommendation is to grant permission to purchase a special needs bus and activity buses from Ross Bluebird Sale, Ross Bus Sales, off a state contract.
How many activity buses?
We're looking at 9.
How many from the bond?
So 900,000, that's about 6.
Good question. Anybody else?
To Danielle's question, to Dr. Williams' question, the 6 buses are for
The Ruston
Ruston, the 3 will be for
everybody.
parish-wide?
Yeah,
Thank you. And the special needs bus will be
parish-wide.
parish-wide. Thank you.
Will all these buses have air conditioning on?
Yes, ma'am. Not yet. They're trying to pass that, but not yet. But that's what we're doing right now.
What was that? I didn't hear it. I apologize.
By law, air conditioning.
Oh,
It needs to be. I agree with that. Yes, sir.
we didn't have air conditioning, is all I'm saying. It's like dropping down. But hey, I get it.
It wasn't as high.
It wasn't as high.
Can the board require air conditioning?
All of these will have air conditioning, right?
Yes.
So we're working to retrofit all of our buses with air
Correct.
conditioning. Is that correct?
So right now, we're in the
I
process.
said, can the board require air conditioning?
It could be at some point.
Yeah, we could be glad to take that into consideration.
Mr. Heffler, the new buses that we're buying, like the buses we bought last year,
Had air conditioning. So everything that we have bought in the last 2 times have had air conditioning. We also just
2 times, not including this time.
not including this time, correct. We just bought 5 last year, 5 used ones, and the year before we bought 3 that all had air conditioning.
Can the board require air conditioning?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I thought I answered that. I apologize.
No, you didn't.
So, but I know we are retrofitting. We used some extra money to retrofit 35 buses, route buses with air conditioning. So that still leaves us with some more, but we, in the process of talking with Mr. Derrick, how we can try to get some of our newer ones fitted with air conditioning that were on activity buses that will go to route once we get these new ones. So we have about a year.
What's our total fleet number?
Total fleet number is 100, that's including spares and older buses. So we have that run routes on a daily basis, we have about 65, 70,
So we're close to 50% at this time.
very close.
Any other statements or comments from the public?
How much does it cost to retrofit them?
So we got a quote the other day, opinion was about 20,000 to retrofit from this company, and the one that, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, something like, very, very similar from the one that won the bid for this last company.
So if we had 30 or 40 more buses to go, we'd be looking at $750,000 to $1 million.
Yes,
to do
and
all of them.
I wouldn't recommend doing all of those because some of them are so old. Yeah, going out. So, I would say we need about 10 to 15 more done, and I think we'll be right on track to have all air conditioned buses within the next 2 years. If we could get 10 more done, 10, 15 more done.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you very much.
So we require it, then it would, to Mr. Fields' question, we require it, how would that work with the policy?
So I'm saying we'd have to adopt the policy
Adopt
if
it.
we want that, but I'll say this, for the last 2 years, and then this year, we're buying, the buses we are buying have air conditioning on.
Okay.
I don't foresee us going backwards and not getting air
So the
conditioning.
goal would be to come up with a plan to where, obviously, all of our new buses have air conditioners, and then we would strategically pick the ones in our fleet that
Correct.
we can justify the money to spend on them.
Correct. So we talked about this, I guess, a year ago, almost October last year. We had almost a 2-part, one of the 2 parts we talked about at one point. So we wanted 35 and then the rest. And when we talked about anything that was 10 years or younger, putting air conditioning on. And so at the time, we decided that we wanted to take care of our students that were going to school, getting on the bus every day and putting it on our route buses. So we took our newest 35 route buses and put air on it. We're through the bid process, and just through them coming, it's taken about a year to get those. And so we put a couple buses, the 2 buses here, we ended up having to replace with activity buses, and then when we got our new buses in, we put those activity buses on route. So those 8 to 10 that just went on route did not have that, I say, would need air. The other ones are within the next 3 to 4 years of rotating off. And I would say probably 3.
So what's the estimated turnaround time from the time we would, if we approved a policy that we said we want every kid to have air conditioning?
The biggest thing is parts, getting parts in. Like I talked to the guy yesterday when he came to visit, if he asked if I got his quote, he told me like, hey, if we were gonna try to get, because we had talked about maybe using some more ESSER money, which we decided not to. He said, if we're gonna do that, we need to go ahead and jump on it if we're gonna try to get everything done by the end of September. So we're looking at, almost, I would say, a month or 2 before they can get parts to certain buses.
But we have that tax that's set aside for it, Ms. Duke. Do we have money to take care of that?
Well, we have funds budgeted this year, $550,000. The delay in receiving the activity buses that was mentioned is probably going to take a couple of years before that can those funds to accumulate to pay for those. And plus 2, as you've noticed, the prices that he's quoted is the cost of buses have gone up exponentially over the last few years. I mean, it's like 94, 95,000. About what, 3 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years ago we paid $94,000 for brand new buses that were spec'd out with no air conditioning. That was the last one we bought with no air conditioning 3 years ago. The following year we bought off state contract 3 AC buses that was about $127,000. And then last year we opened up bids to get used buses that were less than 40,000 miles on them, less than 2 years old, and we were able to get them on bid for $90,000 a piece. So we have looked into that route a little bit more. If these ones hold up that we've had for the last year, we're pleased with them. Looking at that route, trying to save more money, also get better buses like that. And then looking at, of course, these ones have a little more features. They're about 100, and like I said, approximately 167, anywhere between 158 to 167. I can't remember the exact price now on the top of my head.
But let me ask you something. The longer the distance, are we looking at that? With the students who are riding
Yes,
longer distance, they get preference. Like, we're looking at AC.
So we have, well,
Mm-hmm.
yes and no. So yes, when I looked at the buses, the ones that were closer, like we had a group of, let's just say 2014s, I think, that there were 6 of those that I looked at. There was one in Dubach and one in the Ruston district that went out towards Dubach. That were the longer routes that we decided, hey, we're gonna put the air on those buses instead of the ones that go more in town that have shorter routes.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at the age also, just where there is. So I know there's one in Shudrint and one in Simsboro. Bus 50 in Simsboro, Todd Larry drives, and bus 24 in Shudrint that Mr. Moore drives. Those 2 buses were older buses. Once we get these new buses in and we're able to put other buses on from take off our activity to put on there, they'll have new buses within a year if we are able to get these ACs within a year.
So you don't have a plan as to how the buses will go to the routes? How will you decide what air conditioning buses go to what route?
We took the newest buses and put AC on those newest buses. Just looking at years on the buses. That was when I talked to the people that had all the ACs and other districts that were putting it in. They suggested putting it on the newest buses first because of the life of the buses and getting your money's worth.
Does that cover which route will get the bus?
No, not necessarily.
How will you decide what route will get a bus?
Well, it does cover it, but not like do I decide what route is gonna get a bus
Yes,
just on,
yeah,
based on
acquisition
routes?
bus.
No, because it's whatever bus that driver's driving at that time, he keeps that bus for the life of that bus.
Routes are replaced by the age of the bus. Like
Correct.
the older buses are the ones that get a new bus put on there. If that's what you're asking. Isn't that what you're asking?
And so, for instance, the ones that drive out further do about, you know, some Shooter and some Simsboro, those usually get more, get newer buses sooner just because of the mileage they put on them, though. We do take that into consideration, so.
Okay, so that doesn't mean now then, just because it's an older bus, it will get replaced with a new air-conditioned bus.
Correct.
That's what I was asking.
Well, I apologize, I didn't understand what you're asking.
So you're gonna decide who gets air and who doesn't?
By looking at the buses, I don't decide, I decide what bus gets there, yes, sir. But not what person or what student or whatever, I don't know.
I guess what I'm trying to get in my little head is that in one instance you select the age of the bus, and when you come back in another instance, it becomes the mileage on the bus.
So that is taken into consideration, not with the air, I'm just saying replacing buses
Oh, okay.
for those bus, districts. But that doesn't mean they'll have AC.
All right.
I would love for you, if you could, just get us an idea of what buses remaining that would be worth putting air conditioning in. Give us kind of you don't have to do it right now.
I can do it
If
right
you can
now.
get it, you can get it to us at some point. We can take a look at that.
Yes, I can, sure can. I
That
can
would
get
be
that
appreciative.
together. I can have it for you tomorrow if you like.
That'd be great. Just let us know so we can kind of evaluate that and see what kind of plans can we make
Yes.
to
yes,
get
that
to
was-
get this all resolved.
As soon as.
Because I can understand the public's concern is
Okay.
what kids are on a bus that's not and is and
100% agree, and
all
I
the
think
stuff.
that was the plan with myself, Mr. Dirk, Mr. Young, Ms. Duke, was once we were able to get permission to do this, we wanted to sit down as soon as this meeting was over, which we had already started the process of getting bids, just to see how much it would cost, so we can go ahead and get those next 10 to 15 buses, you know, what we could do to get that plan in motion.
Sure, I get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I believe we have before us a request to purchase these buses that we heard about. Are there any? Do we get a motion on that yet? Can I get a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Hunter, thank you. Second. Second by Debbie Abram. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Thank you for that. Okay. Moving on, Mr. Edmiston.
Yes, sir. In your background, board members, existing classroom HVAC units at Simsboro, Shooter Elementary, Ruston Elementary, Glenview Elementary, and I. Lewis. They need to be upgraded. The current HVAC systems in those classrooms are anywhere from 15 to 20 years old. It's difficult to find parts when these units go down. And also these units use R22 Freon, which is no longer available. We are at 410A on our Freon now. We do have R22 on hand and use it when we need it. We're asking to replace 28 units, to give you the numbers, at Simsboro, 21 units at Shooter Elementary, 18 units at Ruston Elementary, 21 units at Glenview, and 15 units at I. Lewis. If you see the funds to pay for these new HVAC units, they're going to come from ESSER. We just to give the board a background, we just put 17 units in. We put 9 in at Hillcrest. We put 8 in at Cypress Springs. We budgeted $190,000 for those units. The bid came in at 90. So we have an extra $100,000 of ESSER funds to use here. We can use school-based M&O, and we can also use some of our District 5 mil funds, which is in really good shape right now. And so we're asking the board to give us permission to advertise for bids for the replacement of these units at these schools, and to grant us permission to accept the lowest bid.
Thank you for that. So we have before us a request to advertise for bids to replace classroom HVAC units. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that.
So moved. I'll go with Mr. Anders on the first and Clark on the second, just because he's got seniority. And any comments from the public?
I'm gonna take lowest bids that meet specifications.
Your motion was the lowest bid.
Lowest qualified bid.
Lowest qualified.
Well, then I will amend my motion then that we accept the lowest qualified bid.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. All right. Next one is 6.7, policy manual additions and revisions. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. All right, so the following policy revisions are being recommended due to outcomes of the regular session of the 2024 legislature. It's a few, so let me get through them. Act 352, EB Buildings and Grounds Management, GAMA employee smoking tobacco and marijuana use, and also links to JCDAA, student smoking tobacco and marijuana use. These are all ban the use of marijuana in any form on Lincoln Parish School Board property. Act 715, IDCH, Home Study Program, IDE, co-curricular and extracurricular activities, and the IDFA, interscholastic athletics. This allows home study students to participate in co-curricular and extracurricular activities with some restrictions. Act 386, truancy, JBE, parent or legal guardian of a truant student shall ensure that the student makes up missed schoolwork. Act 313, JCDAE, electronic telecommunications. If a student brings an electronic telecommunication device in any public, elementary, or secondary school building or on the grounds thereof during an instructional day, the device shall be either turned off and properly stowed away for the duration of the instructional day or prohibited from being turned on and used during the instructional day. Our existing board policy, which has been actively enforced since 2022, is already in place, and it's just one minor change to that policy. Act 400, it's JD discipline. It prohibits administrators from discouraging teachers to take disciplinary action against a student if they have violated school policy. It also has a provision for the mandatory removal of a student from a classroom if they are preventing instruction from occurring. Act 337, JDD, suspension. After any second suspension of a student during the same school year, the principal or designee and the employee designated by the principal to identify behavioral and mental health support services available shall consult on whether the student's behavior could be attributable to a behavior or emotional challenge. And then any student in grades 6 through 12 who was suspended a third time within the same school year for any offense, excluding dress code and tardies, shall be recommended for expulsion. Act 337 as well, JDE, expulsion. Student in grades 6 through 12 who was suspended a third time within the same school year for any offense, excluding those related to dress code or tardiness, shall be recommended for expulsion. Any student in grades 6 through 12 found guilty of being in possession of tobacco, alcohol, or vaping product on school property or on a school bus or at a school-sponsored event may be recommended for expulsion. Act 216, JGCE, child abuse. Students shall be provided age and grade appropriate instruction relative to child assault awareness and prevention, and how students may report abuse or assault to the Child Protection Toll-Free Hotline operated by DCFS, and where students may locate the number for the hotline. That hotline is posted on all of our school websites as of this moment, and also the district website. It also adds policemen acting as SROs to the list of mandated reporters in Louisiana. And Act 216 for the last two, JGCF, Behavioral Health Support for Students, designates at each school site an employee who shall be responsible for identifying behavior or mental health support services available in the community, and when appropriate, facilitating the referral of a student to those services for assessment and treatment. And the last one, JGCFA, Behavioral Health Services for Students. This is just a recoded policy to include the provisions from JGCF. I ask that the board does this in two ways. First, you approve our policy revision period, BD, being waived, and then afterwards, if it's the pleasure of the board, to approve these policies to be in compliance with state law before the start of school.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young. Do I have a motion that we adopt those policy manual additions and revisions? Thank you, Donna Doss. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Debbie Averill.
What, policies? Do we have a job description for an athletic director, or parish athletic director? Do we have anything of the sort? it's good to have something to present your parents instead of your opinion. You know, opinions, everybody has one. So it's cheaper to hand it to you black and white, Joe, don't speak, get a ticket. So I would love to see it. And who is the parish athletic director? Is the partner who available?
Mr. Young.
Okay. That's my question.
Okay. Any other questions from the board or any?
Can we get a little bit of explanation? I don't think we have any legal counsel here today. We talked on some of these things during our continuing education the other day, and I know that this is now state law, right, that has been passed, and we are to adopt these policies. I would like to go on the record, and I know that in our continuing education we talked about this as a group. The homeschool students participating in our school activities, to me, is something that is a very big question mark for me. And obviously,
Get involved in something that didn't happen on school property either. Hell, that's what I'm talking about.
no, sir, I wasn't
The
referring to
line is
anything.
drawn on that school property. You have no jurisdiction once they leave there.
Oh, I wasn't referring to what you were talking about. No, sir, I'm talking about this policy right here. It says homeschool kids are going to be required. I'm sorry.
They not all.
They're not our students, right? I mean, I guess they are to a point. Can y'all just speak to that a little bit about how what that's gonna look like for our coaches, our teachers, our administrators, our sponsors for these different groups? I have a hard time understanding that, I guess, and I can't do anything about it, obviously, because it's been passed as a law. But curious how we're gonna approach that as a district, because I think it says here with some restrictions. Do we have? And I don't have to have an answer today.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we've talked about is obviously the student will have to try out and meet certain requirements. The HSA has released some guidance on some programs that you can take to the school system. It's not just an open door for a homeschool kid to come join our sports team or participate in our clubs. But there are some restrictions on grades, and then also a tryout period to see if that student is worthy to be on the team.
Okay. Thank you.
So going back to Mr. Ferguson's question, with the handbook, do we have an athletic director? I mean, just an athletic handbook, is that something that we need to develop?
We can definitely be in the process of developing one.
Okay.
With some parameters of.
Okay, and another question is with the discipline, so we have a discipline committee district-wide, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, like with this policy about the truancy and discipline, is this something that we're gonna kind of flush out and discuss in the committee, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it can be brought up in committee. A lot of these policies that were revised tonight just changed language in our handbooks that said we shall have an expulsion or shall, do this when a student disrupts a classroom. I think that discipline committee is going to be needed to determine what happens in terms of consequences. And that's something that obviously Mr. Nutt's committee can take a look at in terms of making sure that we're on uniform with what the punishments are. Just because it says a student may have an expulsion in your hearing doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be expelled from the school. So I underline shall and may in there so it'll be really clear for you board members in terms of what happens when a student does something that may result in suspension or may result in expulsion. We train principals on the nuances between the two, but in terms of the consequences, that the discipline committee can discuss what the consequences are for a student violating some of these rules.
And any board members serve on the discipline committee?
I'm not sure what the makeup is going to be.
Okay, so you serve on the discipline committee? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's we were trying to get some ahead of some of that when Mr. Nutt spoke at the last board meeting with some of the meetings. First suspicion, parent coming in with a student to get ahead of some of, hopefully to cut down on the second or third. And that's kind of what Mr. Nutt talked about last meeting.
Okay, so.
You need two motions.
Correct. Well, I need a motion to approve the policy manual additions and.
Motion to waive policy BD first.
A motion to waive policy BD.
BD, which is a review period, because otherwise we would have
Got it. Okay, thank you very much. So, do I have a motion to waive? I do have a motion. Did I get a motion for that?
The motion he made was to adopt these resolutions. We need a motion
Motion first to waive the review
accept the
period.
waiver.
We need to accept the waiver first. We're gonna get a motion to accept the waiver
Of policy BD.
of policy BD.
I move that we waive.
Thank you. Mr. Anders? Ms. Abram? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Okay, so now we need a motion to adopt the policies, additions and revisions as proposed by Mr. Young. Donna Dawson, Debbie Abram had the motion and a second on that one. Is that right? Okay. Thank you for that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed say no. All right. Thank you for that.
So I'm assuming with the athletic policy that, both Mr. Ferguson and Hunter just mentioned, are you gonna lead it as the district athletic director? Or how does that work?
In terms of the,
Athletic, the handbook?
that'd be Mr. Durrett's decision to
Oh,
decide
okay.
on who wants to develop it. I imagine it'll be a committee of people.
A
that will
committee,
develop it.
okay.
All right, let's move on down to report 7.1, maintenance update, Mr. Edmiston.
Yes, sir. I've got a lot of figures and numbers in schools to share with you tonight. I'll try to keep it brief. The ESSER money has been really good for maintenance. We have spent close to a little over $1 million of those ESSER dollars on school projects. And I'll give you a list of those tonight. We put 11 rooftop units on at Simsboro, and that was a cost of $90,000. One of the largest projects we had was we replaced the Ruston High chillers. And those chillers that were there, they were put in 1999. They were about 25 years old, and we were able to go in and to replace those. Those chillers have a 5-year warranty, parts and labor, and the cost of that was $690,000. So that's $780,000 that we spent on HVAC units throughout the district of ESSER money. We replaced all the vent fans in the restrooms throughout the district. All schools got those. They are motion and sound activated. They're set on default and they run about 10 minutes. Everything we've done with these funds has been to be more efficient and to be energy efficient. We put 41 in at a cost of $40,000. We put in 6 hands-free hand wash stations. As you know, that the ESSER dollars was focused on health, better health for our students, and so we put in hands-free hand wash stations. We put in 95 hands-free water fountains and bottle fillers. The students, they don't have to touch them at a cost of $98,000. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we put in 9 units at Hillcrest and 8 units at Cypress Springs. So when you're able to use funds like that, it frees up your 5 mil funds to do other things in the district and make your schools better. And so I'm going to share some of those with you that we've done. We replaced the hot water heaters in our elementary schools, Hillcrest, Ruston Elementary, Glenview, Cypress Springs, and we replaced 2 at Ruston High. Those heaters run about $11,000 a piece. We put 6 in at a cost of $66,000. Those are Tritons, and they're very energy efficient. Cypress Springs, Hillcrest was built in the 60s. Ruston Elementary was built in the 50s. They had Federal Pacific breaker boxes. We went in and upgraded that electrical infrastructure. We took the Federal Pacific breaker boxes out. We put Square D in. That's going to be safer. And Federal Pacific breakers, they're hard to find. If you find them, you find refurbished ones. So we upgraded those. We put in the big switch gear at Ruston High at a cost of $250,000. That was really big. That's where the main power comes into Ruston High, and then it breaks out and goes to the other panels. And we were able to get that done. Here's another grant that was really good that we got from Foster Campbell's office, the Public Service Commissioner. This went to schools that are Entergy customers, and we received $356,000 from that office to put LED lights in all those schools. We have LED lights in all our gymnasiums in Dubach, Ruston Junior High, Shudron Elementary, Shudron High, Simsboro, and the bus barn all have LED lighting now. And the reason they have it is because they were Entergy customers and the grant could be spent there. In April, we inspected all of our roofs, all the foam roofs. The company that inspected them, we got a report back from them, and the foam is in good condition. And most of our roofs are out of warranty, a 15 to 20 year warranty, and we walk every roof. We look at drains, we look at everything, and the consensus of the company that did the inspections was you're in good shape with your roofs. We continue to work on our playgrounds at our elementary schools. I had a gentleman with an insurance company. He walked every playground with me. He put his hand on every piece of equipment with me. We have borders. We have fall zones that meet specifications, and we do inspections on chains and hooks and different things like that that could be a tort on the campus, that a child could get hurt, and we stay on top of that. Painting in our schools is ongoing. That will always be. I walk the schools. Our technicians walk the schools. Principals, assistant principals, and then they let us know, and then we decide. We have a record of where we have painted, and we meet those needs. In the food service area, we've put 2 new freezers in, one at Ruston Elementary and one at Glenview. We put new serving lines in at Ruston High, Simsboro High, and Glenview. And those are some things that we have been able to do in the district. And a lot of the reason that our 5 mil money is in good shape is because of the use of the ESSER. And a lot of this would have been hard to do without those funds. To let you know real quick how our guys work, we have a work order system, and principals at the schools, Mr. Heffler, Mr. Nutt here, if there's an issue, a maintenance issue that needs handled, it comes to us through the computer system, and then we send it to our technicians on their phone, and they handle whatever they need to at the schools. So we do have a work order system. We maintain our HVAC systems. We change filters. I have a company that does that. They do a really good job. We have around 600 units throughout the district. We have 40 rooftop units. And so I have a company that does that, and they do a really good job. We do have a locksmith on staff. We send a young man to be trained. He can cut keys, he can pin cores, he works on closures, panics. That's an expensive item. We have our guy in-house that can do that. Something that I'm excited about that we're about to do, in 2019, we lost $7,000 worth of food due to the tornado. In 2020, when Hurricane Laura hit, we lost $161,000 worth of food. If it gets above a certain temperature, you have to get rid of it. FEMA has just contacted us through the Office of Homeland Security, and they're going to give us $425,000. Our part will be, they're going to give us $450,000. Our part will be $150,000, and we're going to put generators on all our coolers and freezers. So when that power goes down, those generators will fire off, and they will preserve the food, and we won't have a loss like that. And 2/3 of that or more will be funded by FEMA. So a lot of different agencies, the Public Service Commissioner, ESSER, FEMA, I think we're using the money wisely here. So that's kind of what we do.
What schools will get those generators?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, all schools will get the generators, and You already have one here. All schools already have a generator that runs the office. Like if power goes down, we do have phones, we do have the office that's functioning.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Ricky? All right. Ms. Shackelford, Dr. Nugent, let's get a report on ESSER.
President, board, and public, in your packet, we have a pandemic relief fund in action. And if you look on page 2, we're going to give you the background of this report, and then we'll transition to our current status of ESSER. The CARES Act and American Rescue Plan was a response. It started March the 27th, 2020, with a congressional act called Corona Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, the CARES Act. On that 220 emergency legislation, we went into a 4-year journey, and we have involved all of our stakeholders in this journey. It was emergency legislation to support remote learning, continuity of services, and mitigate the economic impact of our schools closing. In 2021, when Biden's administration took cabinet and took office, they continued the resolution with phase 2 with the coronavirus and phase 3 with the academic recovery plans. And they added additional funding, additional educational recovery supports, mental health supports, and critical services continued. So it's been unprecedented what the U.S. Department of Ed has done. The speed that they allocated all of the funding and the resources came into our district every 6 months. We had new allocations. We had a rapid response to those. We followed the federal guidance, the technology assistance, and then the schools navigating the challenges. We transitioned from in-school to total virtual instruction, and we used these funds to figure out and how to do that. The response by Lincoln Parish School Board has had 3 different distributions totaling $33.8 million. And we have addressed the challenges, the disruptions caused by this pandemic, especially in the areas of education, health, and safety. The ESSER funds have allowed us to hit 5 major areas on page 2 and page 3 with various measures. The most common thing that you will hear Dr. Nugent and I say, it is preparing for and preventing the spread of COVID and the purchase of personal protective equipment and sanitation supplies and safety measures. Then we addressed learning loss by school closures, remote learning, and the provision of many instructional supports and resources. We've tried to commit to creating a healthy and supported learning environment during this time with staffing, social distancing, improving ventilation systems, as you just heard, and providing mental health supports. Staffing and recruitment has been critical this time across the nation. There's a shortage of teachers, and we've tried to ensure that we've had the best staff, effective staff, and staffing levels and attracting new qualified teachers. And then we have focused in this last year in liquidation of building back better. We were challenged by Biden to build back better and stronger, invest in educational programs and initiatives that promote student success and well-being. We've done things like Math Refresh, Accelerate Real Literacy, Science of Reading, High Dosage Tutoring. We are trying to build back better and stronger. So laying a foundation of all those resources, I've listed phase 1, 2, and 3 here with the amounts of allocations that were awarded to us. Beginning April and June 2020, we began writing a strong school plan to come back and to do virtual instruction. We were instructed by the federal government and the state government to provide a proportionate share to Howard School, A.E. Phillips, and the non-publics at that point in time. If you see, we started with the Governor's Emergency Fund. That was primarily to look at devices, connectivity, and Wi-Fi, and adjusting to virtual instruction. We were given our first ESSER 1 formula funds, and then by law, we could apply for ESSER 1 incentive discretionary funds. That application process had to adhere to the LDOE state focus areas and based on a needs assessment. And at that point, we applied for more money to do virtual instruction. When phase 2 came around with coronavirus response and relief, how are we responding to the virus? March 2021, we got 50% of a ESSER 2 allocation, and then in January, we got another 50% of the allocation. The LEAs were required by the federal government and the state to create a safe return plan according to the CDC guidance, and we wrote the Accelerated Recovery and Assessment Plan Comeback 2.0, and is posted on the state website in approved status. We began focusing on instructional materials, printing, sanitation, operations, and virtual to hybrid scheduling, and addressing our learning losses. Did we address those learning losses? We continue to address those learning losses today. Simultaneously, as they were allocating phase 2, they started allocating phase 3. If you see the amount of money that they did in phase 3, we had ESSER 3 formula. It was broken down to 80 and 20%. At that point, the Congress asked that 20% of those funds be evidence-based and research-based. So we began to use high-quality instructional materials that were research-based, and we were challenged to meet social, emotional, and academic needs of our students. And then we had to look at how can we continue to close those learning gaps, and how or have we built back better and stronger and positioned the school system to be in a better place since 2020. I know before the grants started, pre-pandemic, we were at 37% mastery of LEAP, and then we dipped down during the pandemic at 34% mastery, but for 2023, we are at 40% mastery. We did close the learning gaps and address learning loss with this ESSER money. We went up 6 percentage points as of FY23 data, which is very impressive. When we look at the next few pages, you're going to have charts and graphs of everything that we did to plan and access those funds and what we did in the school district. At the bottom of page 3, I want to inform you as a public and a district board that you may connect and have public access to the LDOE EPIC Comeback website. All of this is posted for Lincoln Parish, and all of the, from the very beginning, from 2020, all the way through ESSER 3 liquidation is posted on the website. I've calculated the percentages in our focus areas. You can see 27% was on operations, capital improvements, sanitation, and safe returns to schools. Down to page 4, you can see that I even calculated less than 1% was even addressing building back stronger, arts and humanities, strategies for diverse learners, family engagement and support. We even spent money there. You're seeing a total of about $29.1 million. On page 4, I would like you to know that our office and our district manage and we're accountable for those funds. With financial planning, our federal programs and financial staff sought the district leadership of Bruman Group. That's Broomstein and Manassas Federal Educational Lawyers. We had face-to-face training and virtual training with the Bruman firm. It aligned all of our actions to the congressional guidelines and the uniform grant guidance. During that time, the Louisiana Department of Ed stepped up and gave us ESSER allowabilities, told us how to achieve and submit those comeback plans. And then they gave us 56 brand new educational instructional accounting codes. Things like this, SEMH had to be budgeted. Well, that's social, emotional, mental health, and how are you going to address that? And then we had to address SAN, sanitation. How are we going to address that? So we learned how to address all of those things in our plans. Lincoln Parish School Board had successfully completed and acquired state approval for every one of our comeback plans and our strong plans to return to school. And I would like to say, through a collaborative effort, this has not just been the Federal Programs Office. We've been busier than ever and nonstop, and our doors have been swinging open and closed for 4 years addressing these funds. But I want you to know we did it with the executive staff of the Lincoln Parish School Board, the academic content team, the federal programs team, our school leaders. We thank the finance department, the HR department, the technology department, and food services department. We all work together collaboratively to address this pandemic and build back better. We even had to go through a pre-approval process for the state. Anything over $5,000 in equipment or capital improvements, we had to do a pre-approval process. We had to be approved before we took actions in spending expenditures and the bid processes. At this point in time, you need to know all of this is housed in the electronic grant system for the State Department of Louisiana. All of it manages the budgets, the financial reporting, and the monitoring of all the grants that I've listed. We have been committed to transparency and accountability to the state of Louisiana, the federal government, and everything is available, again, to public access. If you look at page 5, we've listed everything we've done in every grant, starting with the governor's emergency relief fund that was really focusing on Wi-Fi connectivity, Chromebooks, and proportionate shares for other schools in the parish. In ESSER 1, you can see the circle graph that goes on page 6. It's probably a better view for you. We started tutoring. We still had an emergency coordinator at that point in time with instructional technology, Wi-Fi devices, recording devices, software, Chromebooks, sanitation, cleaning. Educational technology was our focus there, if you can see, definitely with that pie graph and how we supported the technology department with those ESSER funds. On page 7, again, is that an incentive grant that we had to apply for, and we were awarded $141,118 there. We began Strong Start high-quality tutoring and began to see that we needed to have text and materials sent home and in this children's hands, so we spent a lot of money on instructional materials there and virtual instruction for our teachers, how to record and use Google Classroom for that instruction. On page 8, we began ESSER 2. That was when Biden continued the resolution. And on page 9 is a circle graph that goes with that. There was an extreme focus on focusing on our staffing, retention, recruitment, continuation pay during this pandemic funding, summer learning, cafeteria workers, clerical staff. There was a complete focus at that point in time with ESSER 2 to address staffing and retention and professional development. And we began to look at how we could contact tracing and come back to school with camera systems and different types of educational technology. Then we moved in to a series that Ms. Bastian retired. We were 2 years into this grant and we were very operational. So Dr. Nugent was hired in 22-23 to facilitate and manage the ESSER activities, the projects, and all the e-grant reporting for our school district during this 4-year journey. An ESSER 2 incentive, we even applied for more money. An ESSER 2 incentive on page 10, we applied for $57,000. The state focus was focused on early childhood certification and materials and supplies for that, and to focus on math refresh, which that's what we did if you see the Savas math and jump math. Then you open up the e-grant and there's more money loaded. If you look on page 11, homeless, they started addressing subgroups. So the American Rescue Plan addressed what can we do with our homeless populations. We usually support that with Title I funds, but they awarded us $57,000 for supplies, uniforms, hygiene kits, education resources for their at-home learning, going to the national conference, paying for STEM and summer camps for those homeless students to go to and give them some opportunities. On page 12 and 13, they began to award us extra money to support the required services for our special ed students. On page 12, it's got our focus on 6 through 12 students with IDA 611, and then our focus on IDA 619 with our early childhood and preschool. If you see, we were awarded $335,110, and then $26,240 for those early childhood. We use that for supports for physical needs, instructional supports, compensatory services, and a lot of professional development for those services. And then we came to the last of the money, and then the liquidation timeline. I'm going to step aside because we are now current to where we are in our spending, and I'm going to let Dr. Nugent address the liquidation.
Thank you, Ms. Shackelford. So as Ms. Shackelford mentioned earlier regarding the phases in which ESSER funds were released, that's on page 3. ESSER funds were gradually released, and there were specific guidelines for each wave of funding. So in phase 1 with ESSER 1, that was for the specific immediate needs to address the pandemic. And then in phase 2 with ESSER 2, those guidelines were expanded a bit to address the safe return to school for our students and our staff members. With ESSER 3, with phase 3, we've had the most expanded guidelines, and the focus of these expenditures is to bridge those academic gaps caused by the pandemic and also to build our system back better. We still address safety, and we still address the health needs of our students and our schools, such as air quality and so forth, like Mr. Edmiston spoke about earlier. But we also focused on bridging those academic gaps and addressing the specific needs of our students. So with ESSER 3 formula, we were allocated $16,594,087 to be specific. And I would like to bring your attention just to a couple of things that we use those funds for. High dosage, individualized tutoring, small group tutoring for our students. We expanded our data infrastructure to handle greater technology capabilities. We have extensive high quality curriculum, digital, printed, bound materials, instructional resources, educational technology, and student devices. We are now at a 1-to-1, or we even have a few that we have like in reserves in case some break down. We are very well off technology-wise. And then the physical environments for our students, expanded in additional bathrooms, HVAC systems, new roofs on our school, some of our school buildings, touchless systems in places where there are high-touch areas, normally high-touch areas, like Mr. Edmiston mentioned. And then countless other areas that you'll see on pages 14 and 15. And then on page 17, you'll see a breakdown of ESSER 3 incentive. ESSER 3 incentive funds are funds that we applied for to meet specific needs. And as you can see, we were awarded the Accelerate Grant, which focuses specifically on ZERN implementation, professional development, and curriculum. But also with ESSER 3 incentive, we were able to pay for tuition for teachers to be certified in special education and EL instruction. Those are areas of high need in our district. We were also able to provide science of reading professional development for our teachers and curriculum resources. And then on page 18, you can see a breakdown of ESSER 3 evidence-based funding. Those funds specifically had to correlate to educational best practices and be founded in educational research. So with these funds, we were able to supply schools with mental health counselors. We funded summer learning programs. We provided assistive technology and high-quality curriculum. Now the ESSER deadlines are coming near, and so we are in liquidation mode. Please know that all funds have been obligated. They're set aside for specific purposes, and so now we're ordering the very last items for those purposes, and we're paying invoices for those items. So we're getting stuff in and we're paying the bills. But I also want you to be aware of the deadlines. By September 30th, we must have everything obligated, ordered, and by December 16th, all those items must be in, all services must be received, and all bills must be paid.
So the ESSER grants in action for 4 years ends December 16th, 2024. Hopefully you see that we've addressed the pandemic to the best of our ability as a cooperative entity for our district, and also hopefully you've seen that we've built back better. We're in a better place for a stronger future. On the last page, I do have a summation and looking at that, and it is the current drawdown of federal money at the state as of July 2024. So ESSER 3 formula, we've drawn down 70%. We have 30% to finish up that billing. Evidence-based, we spent 95%, and incentive 80%, and that's as July close of the year PERS. Also, to address this funding, there's going to be many school districts that walk to the cliff and probably fall off after ESSER, according to Edunomics research from Georgetown University. That was one of the places that Ms. Comstock and I got an educational certification when we began this pandemic. We feel like we've been positioned to use research and use guidance from the federal government, from our federal lawyers, and from Georgetown University to position us that we did not hire extra staff and we don't have lots of funding and stress falling off the cliff. We transitioned all of those staff members. We focused in on supporting and building an excellent workforce, addressing sanitation, returning safe to school, and we've seen some payoff already with the 6% growth in closing and addressing the achievement gaps that we're very proud of our work. So if you have any questions now, we will address that with any of the entities here as the leadership, the finance department, the federal programs. But it has been an interesting journey that's added a lot to our job descriptions over 4 years, but it's been a pleasure to serve this school district in this initiative, and we feel like we're stronger and better because of it, and it's been wonderful working together with everybody at the school board.
Thank you. Any questions from the board members?
I would say that's obviously a heck of a job that you guys had to take on, and we appreciate your efforts in there. Outside of the mental health counselors, the English, the 4 EL instructors, and the 4 pre-K positions, do y'all have an idea of like anything else that kind of stands out that you're worried about that we might lose?
All of those have been addressed in the title and formula program budgets. So those have all transitioned. Our sales tax funds are supporting the mental health counselors. So we feel like we're in a good position, and we have a lot of resources, a lot of new curriculum, and one-to-one technology that we're in a really good place looking at 24-25. And I'm really not concerned. There's new legislation that's come out. I think y'all saw in your board packet a lot of unfunded legislation, such as high dosage tutoring is required with Act 771. But we are using a little bit remaining funds with ESSER that we can use till Christmas to address that act, and being very creative and using our remaining funds, and then just working our formula programs and our calculations and seeing where we can go. But I think we're in a good position compared to other school districts.
Thank y'all for your efforts. Ms. Dave, when we get our credit review for Lucius and those guys, the review of these programs,
Absolutely.
that's a part of it, and how we handled our business and that?
Absolutely. It was part of it.
Anyone else? Thank you all so much, by the way, for your work. For 4 years, that's a long time. We appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to personnel. Dr. Lewis.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I'd like to report 1 staff retirement, 6 faculty resignations, 44 staff and faculty recommendations, 19 faculty and staff points of reference, 1 transportation retirement, 1 transportation recommendation, 1 child nutrition retirement, 4 child nutrition recommendations, and 1 maintenance recommendation.
A lot of personnel matters. Thank you for that. Ms. Duke, let's cover sales tax receipts for July.
Okay, sales tax receipts for July. This is our first cash basis collection for the new fiscal year. We are up 34.28% compared to July cash collections in 2023. If you remember, in 2023, we had to make a one-time refund, tax refund to a taxpayer. It was about $670,000. So if we reduce our collections for the month of July by about that much, our collections are actually down about 1.73%. So it's, I've got it noted there on the chart, but it's kind of misleading whenever you look at it and you assume it's an increase. Total collections so far, 1 month is representative of about 8.79% of total collections last year.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Want me to go on through
Go
them?
ahead and go on to
Okay.
June
All right.
2024.
So June 30, 2024, this is the financial summary report, and you have the budget to actual comparison as well. We, for the most part, have the majority of our expenditures accounted for. This does not represent all of our end-of-year closeout for final financial reporting. We are required to provide our annual financial report and submit that to the state by September 30th. So we're still going through that, but this report accounts for the majority of the cash receipts and expenditures. All salaries and benefits are reported in these figures here. So total Total revenues to date for general fund for June 30, 67.9, right at 68 million. Total expenditures in the general fund, 59.7 million. Total other sources of funds, which account for the majority of transfers from other funds for health insurance programs, 12.2 million. And other uses, funds paid out to other funds and programs. Again, some of those are interfund transfers because of health insurance as well, 13.1. Total excess of funds in the general fund of 7.3 million with an ending fund balance of 36.6 million. Approximately 42% of that fund balance, 26.3 million, represents undesignated fund balance. Total of our special revenue funds, total revenues collected for the fiscal year of 44.3 million. Total expenditures of 38.6 million. I will just, if you would look on line 18, it's representative of the Education Stabilization Funds, the ESSER funds that Ms. Shackelford and Ms. Nugent spoke of. Total receipts, reimbursements for fiscal year to date of $12 million. Total expenditures of 10.6 million. And then also the indirect costs, there's an indirect cost portion of 1.3 million, which represents transfers to the general fund to cover administrative overhead costs for administering the program. Just wanted to point that out so you can see all of the funds. As I told you, this is what a fiscal year picture looks like for the ESSER funds. Total expenditures for special revenue funds, 38.6 million. Total other sources of 456,000. Those are transfers from other district funds to the M&O funds, and then also transfer of federal funding from Title I to Title II. From Title II to Title I, other special federal programs as well, which is allowable in the federal program in the EGMS system that Ms. Shackelford spoke of. Other uses of funds, 7.4 million. Total excess deficiency for all special revenue funds combined, a decrease of 1.2 million with a total ending fund balance of 20.6 million, which is majority in our local ad valorem tax funds and sales tax funds that are included in our special revenue funds. So total ending fund balance combined of all general fund and special revenue funds for June 30, 2024 is an estimated $57.2 million total. So that's our total picture for June 30th as of today. Again, we do have some adjustments that we need to make, but largely the majority, this accounts for the majority of all of our transactions for this past fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now you want to hit the health?
All right, moving on to the health. So this is, we're 6 months into the year. For the month of June, we have total contributions of 1.2 million that we've taken in. Total plan expenditures of 1.8 million, with a decrease in our plan assets of $629,000. I will make a comment though, because it is our end of our fiscal year, even though we're in the middle of our health plan year, I had to make an accrual of for changes in incurred but not reported claims. That is required for us to do that at June 30th, and so I had to make an adjustment which increased that expense item under claims expenses. So you can see for the month of June, $162,000 is reported as a change in our incurred but not reported claims, but also for the year, for the first 6 months of the year, $392,645 accounts for an estimate of future claims incurred as of June 30. So, I mean, that is adjusted monthly, but it's adjusted a little bit more this month just to kind of true up to what a true average or estimate is, because our auditors do look at that figure at the end of the year. So total contributions for the plan year to date, 7.2 million. Total plan expenses, including the incurred but not reported claims, 8.9 million, right at $9 million, for a decrease in net assets of 1.6 million. When you compare that to the previous year, you can see that our expenses have gone up. I got a report from Brown & Brown actually this morning, stating that our prescription drug claims have, for the most part, leveled off, and now it's medical claims that are really driving our costs going forward now. So that is our report for June.
Thank you.
For help.
Thank you very much. Mr. Superintendent.
Okay, so just a couple of things. Your annual disclosure statement is due September 15th, so make sure you've got those done. If you need a copy, one to do, we've got that for you. We have prep days, prep nights going on right now at our schools. Going on, started some today, and we'll go on through the rest of this week and start next. School will begin. Teachers all report on Monday, August 12th, and students will all report August 15th, and we will be off to another exciting school year. I think we've got a great school year planned ahead. Just so you'll know, our September board meeting will be at Shudrint at noon, and we will have an academic update then. We do recognize that we've had growth the last 3 years in our student scoring master above, but we did have a 2-point drop in 3 through 8, a 1-point drop in 3 through 12 if you put them all together. We are addressing some of that. We even had some meetings today with our principals and academic people at schools to discuss ways that we can better serve students, and you'll hear some of that at the September board meeting. It was disappointing that we had a slight drop this year, but I will say since 2021, over that 4-year period, we've had a 9% growth overall. So while it wasn't what we wanted this year, I still think the overall picture looks good for us, and hopefully we will do some things this year that we will continue to see more growth in the years to come. I think our teachers worked hard, just didn't get the results that we had hoped, but I do think that we've got a great group of administrators, teachers, maybe some doing some different subjects in different areas. We'll make some adjustments there that will show some growth, I feel certain, at the end of this year.
Thank you. Thank you. Any final comments from the board members before we adjourn? Hearing none, I take a motion we adjourn. Do I hear one?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second? Second. All right. Thank you all very much.